Hey drummers, how's it going? And welcome to this week's exclusive lesson for you sponsors. For this week we're going to focus primarily on the paradiddle. It's an exercise you're never going to stop playing, you're never going to stop learning. There's always so many things you can do with it. If you're a beginner, it's absolutely great to sort of start getting your first sticking down where you're combining single strokes and double strokes. As you sort of move up the levels to sort of intermediate, again it's a really good way to start learning how to use a bit of dynamics within some of these sticking patterns. So we'll be playing accents on the downbeat, a lot of these patterns, and then trying to keep the E, the and the nice and ghosted. So it's a really good way to start getting your first accents and ghost notes going. And then of course if you're sort of more advanced, then there's just all these like orchestrations you can use around the kit, and of course playing at certain speeds, especially those higher tempos, makes it really tricky, and it's great for working on those really sort of fast hands like finger technique and the sort of whipping of the wrist and all lovely stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through 5 great little exercises. What we'll do is we'll go through each one of them. It's 8th notes, and then we'll sort of double the speed into 16th notes, and we'll just keep a continuous or consistent pulse going between the hi-hat, and we'll bring the kick in as well where necessary. So if you like what you saw in the intro and you want to give these exercises a go, stick around and I'll break it down. Here we go. Alright, so the first exercise we're going to sort of focus on is a really basic idea. It's just a great way to sort of learn the feel and the flow of a paradiddle. Of course, when you're playing the paradiddle, if you're a beginner, it's right, left, right, left, left. And if you think to yourself the word paradiddle as you're playing it, that's going to really help sort of maintain that pattern. So it's paradiddle, paradiddle, right, left, left. And right from the word go, we're going to accent that first note. So it's going to be paradiddle, paradiddle. And it's going to alternate between the right hand and the left hand. So it's a great workout for keeping both your hands nice and even. Of course, when you're doing the accents, you want to make sure your right hand and left hand are coming up and sort of hitting at the same velocity so they don't sound uneven. And what we're going to do first is we're just going to shift the right hand over to the floor tom, give it a bit of a melodic vibe so you can actually sort of hear how the notes sort of separate, and that will hopefully sort of aid you in learning the actual pattern and internalise the sticking pattern a little bit quicker. So let's just crack on with the first one. I'm going to keep the snare drum turned off for the majority of this lesson. It will sound great once you sort of get this going nice and fast. You get that nice little purry sound on the snare drum, especially when you're doing some of these later ones when we're bouncing off the crash and moving around a tiny bit. But just for the sake of practicing, I always turn my snare off when I'm practicing paradiddles or sort of more intricate little sticking patterns, just so I can hear that every note is even, because sometimes the rattle of the snare can sort of be a little bit deceptive. So if we just dive into exercise number 1, what we've got is just the paradiddle, again accenting on the first note, so it'd be 1 E and 2 E and or as we start it off, we're just going to play it as 8th notes. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Alright, my left foot's going to be going all the way through. Don't worry if you can't do that straight away, but that's something you want to sort of bring in later. You want to be layering like whatever your hand's doing over nice ostinato with the feet. So, pattern number 1, right hand on the floor tom, left hand's going to stay on the snare, accent the first note, so paradiddle, paradiddle, right, left, left. Let's get a nice little ostinato going with the feet, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, right, left, left, left. So that left hand is providing a backbeat. So right, left, right. Okay, so I'm hitting pretty much a rim shot. Not pretty much, I'm hitting a rim shot on that one, and then trying to keep all those other notes nice and low. And that's how you can develop speed, because you're not going to be able to get particularly fast at playing this if all your notes are sort of fairly even and nice and loud, especially when you want to sort of learn how to utilise the bounce of each drum a tiny bit. So I'll go for the pattern as 8th notes. I'm going to double the speed to 16ths. My feet are going to remain exactly the same. So let's just go through that. But let's pop up there. I'll turn this down a little bit so you can see it. Alright, so that's the first exercise done. What we're going to do is we're going to start sort of moving the left hand around the kit. It's be the first time we start getting the left hand off of the snare. The right hand's going to play the first paradiddle coming off the crash. So we're going to get right, left, right. And then we're going to go up to the high tom of the left hand, left, right, left. And then we're going to bring the right hand to the floor tom, right, left. And then we're going to be doing a nice big accent with the left hand, left, right, left on the snare. So all we're doing is just going to hit the downbeat of each paradiddle. So it'd be paradiddle, paradiddle, nice and fun to play. Let's get the feet going and then we'll pop up there and go through this exercise. What I'll do, again, I'll start off with 8th notes, then I'll subdivide that into 16th notes, so doubles in speed basically. Here we go. Let's hear that one nice and fast. Here we go. All right, moving on to exercise number 3. Now this one's a bit of a hybrid between the first two. So we're going to start off with the second exercise. We'll be coming off the ride cymbal for the first paradiddle. So right, left, right, right. Coming off the high tom for the second paradiddle. Left, right, left, left. And then for the second half of this, we're going to sort of play a little bit of what we did in the first exercise, but we're going to start off by doing the accent on the snare with the right hand. So we get this right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. So the remainder of the notes with the right hand then go to the floor tom. So let's go through that nice and slow. So we've got right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Tiny bit faster. Alright, so let's do exactly the same as what we did with the first two. I'll pop up there, I'll play as 8th notes, then I'll keep the foot pattern going and then sort of play as 16th notes. And then once we've done that, I'll just show you what it's going to sound like when you blast it out nice and fast. So here we go. Alright, let's blast it out nice and fast as we go. Alright, so for exercise number 4, this time what we're going to do is we're going to utilise the crashes and we're going to try and get that right foot working with that left hand. So all we're going to do is for the downbeat for the first 3 pedals, we're going to hit a crash, or in my case, a rather brash ride cymbal. You can move your hands around a tiny bit as well. And then for the 4th paradiddle, which will be with our left hand, we're just going to accent on the snare. So we get this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. So this one, you've got to, be a bit careful, making sure you don't go. Because naturally, if you're fairly new to playing that bass drum and crash with the left hand, your foot's going to want to try and land with your right hand at first. So just try and make sure you don't end up flamming that particular note and you get that nice clean punch with both the bass drum and the crash at the same time. So one more time, tiny bit faster. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. And again, you probably heard this one in a bunch of solos. It's quite a popular little idea. So again, let's pop up there. I'll go as 8th notes and then in 16th notes and then smash it out really fast. So here we go. Nice and fast. Alright, so moving on to our fifth and final exercise, what we're going to do is create kind of like a half-time groove. Our left hand's only going to be playing its accents up on the hi-hat and then all the rest of its notes down on the snare drum. And our right hand's going to go on the first sort of paradiddle, so we're going to go right, left, left, right, left, left. Then going to do an accent on the snare with the right, left, right, and the left hand goes up, left, left. And if we sort of play this in a loop, and that one sounds really cool. And again, if you want to, you can start lifting the hi-hats in between together. And that's quite a nice little effect you can put in there as well. So that is our fifth and final exercise. Again, we'll go up there, we'll play it sort of like as eighth notes at half the speed, and then we'll double the speed to 16th notes, and then I'll blast out nice and fast, like I just did kind of then. So here we go. Nice and fast. Nice. All right, so let's take all these little patterns and just sort of mash them up and have a bit of fun. So here we go. Alright drummers, there it is. Don't forget to grab the sheet music for this one so you can go through each of these exercises. And of course you can take these ideas, sort of mix them up a little bit and then combine them into whatever idea you want. And then see if you can start incorporating the paradiddles into some of your playing. If you can find ways of sort of turning it into a groove. It sounds great if you're just sort of doing like a right, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, left. I've done sort of little ideas on that concept where you're playing like the right hand up on the hi-hat and hitting those bass drums before in the past. So I thought I'd just offer something a little bit different. So that nice little half-time groove idea sounds quite cool. But then see if you can get some of these little paradiddle ideas going around the toms with the crash and all that as like a nice little 1-bar or 2-bar drum fill. Because the more you play them and sort of put them in some sort of context, the more familiar and the easier and more fun and the different ideas you'll come up with. So don't forget to check out the sheet music, go through each of those, and I'll see you very soon for some more exclusive lessons for you lovely sponsors. Alright guys, see you soon. Bye.